exam study and how to actually make it work. A lot of you are studying and you keep asking yourself, why is it that I can't remember stuff? And maybe is it that I'm not achieving because I'm learning something wrong? The answer is, well, probably not. But maybe you're actually letting yourself forget. So we need to actually ask ourselves, why is it that I can't remember? You might have heard of something called the learning curve. People talk about being on a steep learning curve, and that's really, really hard work. But this guy called Ebbinghaus, who was a German psychologist, came up with a better idea, and that was the forgetting curve. And he said, look, how fast you forget something really depends on two factors. The first one is time, and basically that retention of whatever you've just learned will fade in time, and that seems pretty straightforward. The second thing he said was that the strength of memory will affect how long that thing stays in your head, which makes sense because you tend to remember things like your first kiss or, some really, really emotional event that happens in your life. You might be then saying to me, well, look, come on, but, it's really, really hard to have an emotional study, attachment. Come on, I study accounting theory for God's sake. All I really want to do is just pass. So the teacher's answer is going to be something like, well, the longer you leave it, the less there is in that noggin of yours to actually work with. And that's absolutely true. So if you can't have an emotional study attachment right there, then you need to go, okay, it's all about the time and effort that I'm going to spend with my study. And that's a no free lunches sort of an answer. There's no shortcuts, which kind of sucks, but we need to think about how is it that we actually learn stuff in the first place. So if you have a look at what you retain of what you've just learned, you've got to remember that at some stage there you've reached this point of poor retention where basically what you've just learned has effectively become useless. So when you first learn it, it's great because you know it, but very quickly that what's sitting there in your head, it disappears very, very quickly. And of course, you can go back and relearn it. It's not so hard the second time round, but of course, again, you're going to have that drop off in memory. So let's have a look at the way that most students actually go ahead and study. First, they go to class and they learn something. They pretty much drops off very, very quickly. They might go back and then have to do it again for the assignment, and of course, they know it after they've just done the assignment, but of course, they forget. The next assignment comes due, then there's the exam time, they study everything, cram, and then but after the exam, it's all gone. In fact, many students actually actively try to unlearn stuff that they've just learned for the exam, which is insane because you actually need to remember that next semester around because what you learned in topic 1 usually becomes the basis for the next topic thereafter. So try not to forget stuff, basically. A better way to be doing this would be to have your repetitions a little bit closer, but the problem with this guy is that, as we can see, as he's learning stuff and then subsequently forgetting stuff, is that he's waiting until he's actually forgotten something, and then once he's at the bottom, he's actually having to relearn it all the way up again, and that's rather inefficient. The thing that we notice about this is that every single time he does this, it sort of stretches out a little bit more, and he sort of retains a bit more every single time. So what would be the way to learn efficiently then? Efficient learning would mean that you'd have to be reinforcing something before you actually forget, and this way you're avoiding the unlearning effect. So those repetition and those learning events, they happen very closely together, so that when you go to the lecture, you revise your notes that night. Then you'd read the book, and very soon that you're remembering everything that you've just learned in the lecture. And then straight after that, you've got a tutorial, so that you're becoming prepared, and there's no effort there in relearning because you haven't forgotten stuff. And then you might have the assignment. Of course, you haven't forgotten very much, so it's very easy to do that assignment. Again, by the time it comes to the exam, there's not a lot to learn because you haven't reached that zone of poor retention. It's all stuck there. This means that for a very, very long time afterwards, you're going to retain this well and truly beyond that exam day, that you're going to be a master of your area. And it's all about, when do you do the repetitions? Do them soon, do them early, do them frequently, but once they're sort of stuck in there, then you can space them out longer and longer and longer, and you'll find that you just don't need a lot of effort to get there. What I'm trying to say here is that cramming the night beforehand is really a bad idea because you're trying to cram a lot of ideas into your head and you're just not going to remember it the next day, which means that at best you might be able to pass, and basically you're very, very close to this fail zone of where the information is no longer effectively useful. And I'm sure you're watching this the night before the exam going, gosh, I'm already close to the exam, what the hell can I do? Is it already too late? And the answer is, potentially, yes. But let's have a look at how we can overcome this. I've got another technique up my sleeve. It's called mind mapping. Let's have a look at how mind mapping works. You should be using mind mapping to study. It's a great technique. It checks what you do know, and most importantly, like Donald Rumsfeld, these unknown unknowns, it will tell you what you don't know. So it's a great technique to do that. And most importantly, it's kind of a fun way to study in the first place. So let's have a look at the steps. Step one is you get a list of topics that you need to know and you close the book. The best way to get these topics is really just to go to the unit outline and have a look at what will be covered. Once you have some idea of what you're going to cover in that semester and therefore what you need to know for the exam, I want you to draw your mind map and give yourself about 5 minutes on every single topic. There might be 13 weeks in your semester, so it's going to be a few different mind maps you're going to produce for every single topic. The next thing is that once you've done that, you open your books and you actually highlight the issues that didn't come to mind the first time around. So here's a mind map. Let's start off with that basic central concept that you're supposed to learn in that topic in that week. Now, there are lots of ideas that I'm sure that you remember from that lecture, and they all sort of stem from this basic one. But maybe there's some idea I remember something, and I don't know, just something about whatever. And then there are other ideas which you will remember. They link back to it. So when you're finished, you've got this half completed mind map with lots of blanks in there. Some idea up the top left hand side that's just sort of sitting in the middle of nowhere. So okay, cool. Now it's okay to open your books again, and I want you to pick up a different color pen this time, and I want you to fill out the rest of that mind map of anything that you've forgotten. So you might remember, oh heck, that's right. Now that I've got my books in front of me, there was something else, and it linked back. That's how it works. It's easy now. And of course, there's other ideas that I've had to flesh out, and of course there are other basic concepts I completely forgot. And come to think of it, that one up there, that had this complex link where something linked to something else, and now I can explain it a lot better. And this is really, really useful because really the areas that I've just highlighted here in gold, these are the ones that you don't know, and that means that these are the ones that you need to revise. There's no sense in trying to go back and relearn the blue stuff because you already know the blue stuff. It's the gold stuff that is here in a different color, standing in front of you. This is what you've got to learn for the exam. So when you finish with all this, you've got this neat little mind map, and it basically structures all the information, everything that you know about that topic, so that you can recite it very easily. Let's finish off with a quote. Einstein said that education is what remains after one has forgotten everything that they've learned at school. So basically, don't worry if you forget everything, but the idea is to have some sort of wisdom at the end of all of this study. Happy studying. If you need any more information, go visit tetracarbon at blogspot.com or follow me at tetracarbon on Twitter.